a suitable place.
Sorry.
Aunt Corsia's house, though separate, was not a suitable place for the children to play because the compound was cluttered and not clean. So the girls often went to her daughter, Gula's house, and sometimes spent the night there. Aunt Corsia had been childless in her marriage for 7 years before Gula was born. When she grew up, Gula had married a Parsi military veterinarian in a love marriage, which was and still is unusual. Arranged marriages are the norm amongst all communities in India. Now, Gula lived in a quiet cottage on the edge of town, near the race course, not too far from Aunt Corsia's. It had plenty of open ground where the girls could run around. European children who lived in surrounding bungalows came to play with them. And sometimes Gula took the girls to the races. They also went on small outings with their relatives and were always present for family gatherings and on holidays. So we didn't feel so unhappy to be in Pune, alone, away from our parents, said Mehera. When Jahangir was transferred, however, from Sindh province in the northwest frontier to Thana district, north of Bombay, it was close enough for the girls to visit their parents more often. They went there on longer holidays, such as the 2-week Diwali, Festival of Lights holiday in November, at Christmas for 3 weeks, and during their 6-week summer vacation in April and May. Occasionally, since Jahangir was the gregarious sort and his solitary, isolated postings prevented him from socializing, they would visit other places as well, such as Jahangir's first cousin, who lived in Dahanu, a few hours north of Thana on the coast, in a spacious house surrounded by orchards. They also once stayed with their parents in a bungalow on the south side of Bombay. After some time, Jahangir was transferred to Veeraval in Gujarat. And here the family had a 2-story government duplex by the sea with a large compound. There were no other houses in the area, but a collector, district commissioner, and his family, which included several children, occupied the other half of the duplex. This highly placed official was a Jew, like Jahangir, a member of a minority, but he had converted to Christianity. The two families shared a lot in common. However, in the evenings, they often sat outside together visiting. The men had after-dinner drinks while the ladies chatted and the children played nearby. Many times they sat in a circle and played some sort of game. Down at the beach, buoys, nets, and poles marked a place in the ocean for swimming, but Jahangir was occupied in his work and did not have time to teach the girls to swim. During the month, they were there. Sometimes David, the college-age son of the collector, would be home on holidays, and he would take Mehera and Pirojha on his shoulders and wade deep into the water. But most of the time, the girls just waded into the shallow part or played on the beach, where an ayah watched over them. The sidebar says Jahangir however, did take them on a trip to the little Ran of Kutch.
I wonder what that was.
I think that Ran of Kutch is where these farmers remove salt from the soil. They have salt farm.
I
Yeah,
could Google it.
yeah, yeah,
Ron of
It's a
Kutch.
place on the west of India,
yeah.
and I think it's a little far from Mumbai though. It's near to Gujarat though.
Right.
What?
Yeah, it's like sanded area with salt deposit. Yeah.
Okay.
One spot at Verival was especially rocky, and here the girls found crabs. When they took them home to show Dalit, she exclaimed, "What have you brought? Leave them alone. Let them go." But when the cook saw them, he was delighted. "Bring me more and I'll make crab curry," he said. He showed them how to catch the crabs in the crevices of the rock with string, and the next day they went hunting again. This time they brought home a bucketful, and the cook made a delicious curry. Occasionally, when the girls were playing on the beach, Dowlet and Jahangir came down for a swim. Dowlet, being modest, was nervous and reluctant to learn to swim. But Jahangir was the assertive type. "No, you must come in," he would insist. "You must learn how to swim. Everybody swims. Why shouldn't you dip yourself into the sea? It's invigorating." And he would pull his wife into the water. He also tried to get Dowlet to ride a horse, which she finally did with his help and over her protest. The children watched, giggling gleefully at these parental antics. But Mehera herself never learned to swim as a child. She did, however, learn to ride a horse. In Sukkur, when Mehera was almost 5, her father brought 2 donkeys home for her and her sister to ride around their compound and practice keeping their balance. A year or so later, when they were home visiting for the holidays, Jahangir bought 2 small ponies. He had them harnessed and told the groom to teach the girls to ride. Perosia was old enough to ride alone with her father and 1 other horseman, but Mehera was only 6 and had to be content riding her pony around the compound. But she learned quickly, and later, whenever the girls came home, Jahangir would have the horses saddled. Without cinemas or other forms of entertainment in the often lonely outposts, it was their one recreation. The sidebar says, once Jahangir took Mehera and Perosia to the stable of a Maharaja who owned Shetland ponies, and the girls were allowed to ride the beautiful animals. At Verival, when Mehera was 7, a horse ran away with Perosia. They were on their way home from a ride and had reached the top of a hillock when Perosia's horse started galloping down the hill. She lost her seat in the saddle, bumping down in front of the horse. Nevertheless, she held on tightly to the horse's neck and ended up dangling between its front legs until the horse came to a halt.
Wow.
At another time, Mehera's horse ran away with her. It happened when they were riding on a path through the forest, on the other side of which was their parents' tent, where they were camping. The horses were quiet ones, but all of a sudden, Mehera's remembered that beyond the forest was its temporary stable. it started galloping. A low dead branch came at her, and since she was a child, she hadn't the strength to turn the horse. A groom who was riding with them was preoccupied talking to another servant. Mehera ducked, but the branch knocked off her solar topi. The chin strap broke and the topi became stuck in the tree. She was lucky.
So, Eugene, would you like to read a little bit?
I'd be delighted, but why don't we get Meher to read? We haven't had him read,
Okay.
and be great to hear his voice.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm new here. I met some of you before, but just like we are from Hyderabad, India, and we came to US in 2013. And since then, I visited Maital Beach like 4 times. And though my father named me Meher after Meher Baba, I only recently discovered Meher Baba. That's a long story, but I will just start this reading from here now.
Okay.
It was lucky. Is that from the starting?
Yeah.
It was lucky the branch took only her hat. If it had been hanging any lower, it would have hit her straight on the forehead. But she clung to the horse like a monkey and stayed on, riding home bareheaded. The groom was frantic with worry over the incident, but the girls forgave him. We did not tell our parents to scold him, said Mehera. After Vereval, Jahangir was transferred to nearby Junagadh, the district headquarters. And here the family stayed in a large government house with a grand compound and a garden. Unlike Pune or Sukkur, Junagadh did not have many Britishers or Europeans and was more of a traditional Indian town. Situated in Gujarat under the Girnar and Dathar hills, Junagadh, as one early travel guide described it, was a luxuriant oasis of shade in the desert. The city had several public gardens and a zoo, featuring the famous Girnar lions. Junagadh was to be Jahangir's final posting. Mehera, who was 7 or 8 when she came here for the summer vacation in April and May, remembered that when her father came home from work, he used to kiss and embrace me and then swing me up on his shoulders and carry me up the stairs. He would hold my sister's hand and climb the stairs with me on his shoulders without touching the railings. Piroja had been learning to play the piano at convent school, but since they did not have one at home, she had no place to practice in Junagadh. So Jahangir made friends with a kind British woman who had a cottage piano. He asked whether his daughters could practice on it, and she graciously agreed. One day, he took the girls to the house, and Piroja played all the charming tunes Jahangir liked, such as Home, Sweet Home, which was his favorite. He liked it so much that he made her play it again and again. He loved to listen to her play, Mehera recalled. While they were in Junagadh, Daulat arranged a children's tea party. Invitations were sent to the children of a Hindu magistrate and others. The girls wore pretty dresses, and a tablecloth was spread on which small cups and saucers were arranged. Everyone had their tea and played for a while, and then it was time to go home. When they were about to leave, Daulat brought out some chocolate for the girls to hand over as favors. Mehera insisted that she be allowed to distribute them to the guests, but she did not know English very well at the time. I ran with the chocolates, she said, and told each girl, take. Afterwards, Piroja laughed and said, did not you know that you are supposed to say, please take this and come again?
Hmm.
Mehera retorted, then why did not you tell me? Since Jahangir was fond of excursions, while they were in Junagadh, he took the family to the nearby Girnar Mountains, 3,666 feet high and one of the most remarkable mountains in India, with ancient Jain and Shiva temples built on it. Baba even visited this mountain once and said that every avatar has been there. Wow.
Mm. Um, Eugene, you want to pick up? Thank you, Meher.
Welcome.
To get an early start for their outing, they had to wake at dawn, and Mara was always the late riser. Jahangir thought of a novel way to rouse his sleeping princesses. He placed a gramophone in the middle of their bedroom, put on a record of an Indian marching band, then turned up the volume as loud as it would go. The children woke with a start and remembered, oh, we have to get ready to go to Girnar today. They jumped out of bed and quickly dressed. Picnic baskets were packed and off they went in a four-wheeled Victoria. Girnar Mountain is covered with thick forests and caves where yogis and sadhus meditate. On the top of the mountain is a scenic plateau where the British had built a rest house. Dolis, bamboo seats, were available in which older people could be carried up the steep mountainside. Dowlett sat in one of these while the others walked ahead. They rested at a dock, as a traveler's bungalow, part of the way up, where there was a large Hindu temple. Outside the temple was a large basket of gaily decorated sandals made of purple and red velvet. These had to be donned to enter, since the wearing of leather footwear was prohibited. Mara chose a pair of bright red ones and slipped them on, but they were too big. Dowlett said she could not use those and found her the right size before they entered. Jahangir was such an active person that despite their already steep climb in the hot sun, he did not want to rest and said that he was going up still further to another temple on top of the mountain. Dowlett tried to dissuade him. Why do you want to tire yourself? What's there to see? Jahangir shrugged. Now that I've come this far, I might as well see everything. He was determined to do it, and accompanied by some Hindu priests, climbed the hundreds of steps to the top, where the plateau became very narrow. It was rough going, but they all made it, and at the Shiva temple on top, Jahangir gave an offering. My father did not know anything about spirituality, Mara observed, but he had that nature. He was drawn to spiritual things and places. He took the trouble to go up to the temple. No other Zoroastrian would have exerted himself like this. Mara visited Junagadh only a few times during her Christmas and summer vacations. To bring her and her sister from Pune, Jahangir would send a Parsi friend or one of his staff, but when it came time for them to return to school, he would take a few days' leave and accompany them himself. He would engage a private compartment for the three of them. In those days, things were beautifully maintained by the British, Mara recalled. The train was nice and clean. I still remember the tiffin basket. As children, we were very hungry. We had brought roast chicken. My mouth was watering all the way.
I don't remember any of this. Do you, Eugene or Rosalie?
Uh, I don't remember reading it recently, but you're right.
I think
Look
he
it up.
really this is the new version that David Fenster sent me a few weeks ago. So he's added quite a bit, I think. Um,
So far, it's the same as the book that I have.
oh, it's the same as the book?
So we're just forgetting, Tina,
I
our
guess
our
so.
old brain cells.
Well, it was a long time ago. It was over 2 years ago. So you can't be expected to remember everything. Um,
Oh,
I do you want to uh, uh, have me read now, Deb?
Um, I can read because I got the phone call and I'm free.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, I loved traveling by train, she added. You can look out of the window, see the view, and watch the stations come. It was lovely then. No hurry-scurry like nowadays. I would put my face outside the window. In monsoon season, I loved to feel the cool, light rain on my face. The author asked her, "Didn't your mother tell you not to stick your head outside?" Mehera, exaggerating, replied, "My mother never told me not to do anything." Wonder about that. Jahangir bought children's books to keep the girls entertained during the long journey. A book of photographs of Western children dressed as dancers doing a minuet was one of Mehera's favorites. Mehera did not care much for reading, but she loved to look at the enchanting pictures in the picture books. When the train stopped in Bombay, Jahangir took them to a toy shop. We couldn't make up our minds what to pick. Whatever we asked for, Father would buy for us to keep us happy before we went to school. He bought us sweets, chocolates, and for Franny, Paroja that is, a copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales. We stayed for a day or two in Bombay at a hotel and almost forgot that we had to go back to school. My father always wanted to see us happy, to make us laugh, and to make sure we enjoyed ourselves. He would tell us stories. He was such a loving person. And all along the way, he had friends at almost every train station. When a station came, Jahangir would get down. The train only stopped for 5 minutes, but there Jahangir would be, shaking hands and talking with his acquaintances. The girls peered out the window, starting to feel anxious, and asked, "When will Father come back?" The train whistled and they shouted, "Papa? Papa?" Jahangir looked around. "Yes, yes, I'm coming," he said, and then finished what he had been saying to a friend. He kept walking as the train gathered speed. Then he ran and leapt into their compartment. "At every station it would happen like that," said Mehera. "When we arrived in Pune, my father would go and talk to Mother Superior. She liked my father because of his personality. He would speak very politely. He spoke English well and dressed in English clothes. Since he spoke English well and dressed in English clothes, the nuns treated him with respect. When Father left, Mother Angela would say, 'Now come along, my children,' and then the other girls would gather around us to share our sweets." Want me to quit there? Or?
Can you just finish that next paragraph?
Sure. 10 years before, however, in Mahabaleshwar, when Mehera was not even born yet, Jahangir had sustained an injury that was to prove fatal. It happened when he was out on horseback in the thick forest. The road he traveled was little used, and in those days automobiles were uncommon. Jahangir was lost in thought gazing into the brush when a car suddenly came around a bend straight at him. He was not prepared, and the horse, unused to cars, shied and reared so abruptly that Jahangir fell and struck his head on a rock. He was hurt behind the right ear, but being young and in robust health, he shrugged off the injury. The incident was forgotten.
Oh, okay. I can pick up unless somebody else wants to. Um, let's see. Did anyone else come in? No. Okay. Uh, Over the years, the bone rotted and became infected. In 1915, it flared up again. From Junagadh, Jahangir was to travel to Nasik on official business. Since he would be in the area anyway, he told Dowlett to show his ear, that he would show his ear to a specialist in Bombay. He left Junagadh never to return. Dowlett would never see her husband again. After completing his work in Nasik, Jahangir applied for and was granted 7 days' leave. He went to Bombay, where he showed his ear to a Parsi ear specialist at the Messina Hospital on Victoria Road. The doctor said that he would have to have a mastoid operation and that it would only be a minor one. Only a small amount of surgery was required. There was a chip of bone that had to be removed. That was all. Before the operation, Jahangir went to Pune to see his family. Destiny had brought him there. Mehera said sadly, his time had come. Jahangir loved his parents, and although his father had died the year before, he was still close to his mother. She too longed to see him whenever she could. Why go to Bombay? His mother asked. We have a family doctor right here in Pune who is very clever. Show him your ear. Jahangir went to the Pune doctor, who said he could easily perform the operation, even though he was not an ear specialist. There was no need for Jahangir to journey all the way back to Bombay. He said here in Pune, his family could take care of him while he recuperated. Because Jahangir took his condition lightly, and the Bombay surgeon had said it was a minor operation, Jahangir agreed. Two versions exist of what happened next. Mehera, who was 8 at the time, said that the doctor operated on Jahangir in his office, which was also in his house. He had no proper operating theater, and the room was filled with dust. Moreover, something went wrong during the operation. The doctor made an incorrect incision, and Jahangir died on the operating table. Perosia, who was 11, remembered things slightly differently. Being older than Mehera, she was more sensitive, perhaps, to what was happening, and opined that Mehera was probably too young to understand what was going on at the time. She said that when Jahangir came to Pune that time, school had not yet reopened, and the girls stayed with their father at their grandmother's house. Jahangir's ear ached the whole night, and Perosia was upset and kept crying. Since their grandmother had to nurse Jahangir throughout the night, the children were sent away to the home of one of Jahangir's sisters, Aunt Mani. In the morning, when Jahangir was to be operated on, the girls were told that everything would be all right. The operation was apparently a success, but the next day, Jahangir's condition worsened. The doctor brought chloroform to try to ease his pain, but it was no use. Jahangir died on the third or fourth day of the operation at the age of 45. After the operation, at the age of 45. Rosalie, would you like to pick up?
We felt stranded, Perosha recalled, all alone. We didn't know what to do. Our mother was not there. I felt so frightened. Meanwhile, Dowlett was cabled in Junagadh that although the operation had been a success, she should come to Pune immediately. It took 3 days for her to reach Pune, and there she was informed that her husband was dead. The children did not attend the funeral, but coincidentally, Meher Baba's own father, Shariarji, was one of those who helped bathe the body and prepare it to be taken to the Tower of Silence, where Zoroastrians place their dead. Afterwards, Shariarji remarked to his friends, I have attended many of these ceremonies, but I have never seen a body like Jahangir's. He had such broad shoulders without an ounce of fat. Jahangir's death was a terrible blow to Dowlett. She had lost an infant son, and now, after 13 years of marriage, her husband. For days, she could not believe it was true. His death was so sudden, so unexpected. He had not been ill. In fact, although he had led such a rough life, Jahangir was always in good health. He never even had a cold. Now, at the age of 39, Dowlett was a widow with 2 small daughters to raise alone. My mother was shocked and heartbroken over my father's death, said Mehera. But it was necessary so that she could be free to come to Baba. She had to suffer. When one's time comes, however healthy or strong one is, one drops the body. Under any excuse, in whatever circumstance, we must drop the body when the time comes. And it was this shock that made my mother turn more to God in her life. The sidebar says, and it was in Mehera's destiny to grow up in an immediate family that was exclusively female. After Jahangir's death, Aunt Khorshid's son-in-law, the Parsi veterinarian, wait a minute. I see. After Jahangir's death, Aunt Khorshid's son-in-law, the Parsi veterinarian, was asked to go to Junagadh, collect Jahangir's papers, and pack the family's belongings. Neither Dowlett nor her daughters ever returned there. Bombay Government Gazette, civil appointments. Mr. Jahangir Hormazji Irani to be extra deputy conservator of forests, Mr. Gopal Subrab Dangi. Wow. Is that Mehera?
Yeah,
Dowlett Mehera. Wow. So cute. I've never seen that one. Taken by Jahangir.
that's her father, I think.
Yeah, he was very tall. Yeah.
Well, it's much better photo than the one in the book. I mean, the
Yeah.
older book. Could you go back so we can see it again?
Wow. Yeah,
Wow.
Much clearer.
Yeah.
Ah, this must be their wedding.
Ah, boy, she looks like a giant next to her.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. It doesn't say what it is. Mara's maternal grandparents, Shireen and Sohrab Irani. I guess this is Shireen. Maybe this one is Shireen, and this one is Sohrab,
Ah,
and their daughter Gula. Oh, going the wrong way. Uh, let's see. Whose turn is it? Is it Meher's turn?
Yeah, the Royal Hotel. After Jahangir's death, Daulat moved in with her parents in Pune, and Mehera and Piroja could once more live with their mother. Having been weekly boarders at the convent school for more than 2 years, they became day scholars and lived at the Royal Hotel. The large extended family at the hotel included Daulat's eldest brother, Ardeshir, his wife, also named Daulat, and their daughter, also named Piroza, plus Uncle Dinsha, his wife, and his 3-year-old son Behraham. With Daulat and her 2 girls, this made 3 families plus the grandparents living together in the 6-bedroom house. Mehera and Piroja loved it. They enjoyed living with their aunts, uncles, and grandparents, but especially playing with their 2 young cousins in the fruit trees in the compound. Cousin Piroja was 6 months younger than Mehera. They went to the same school, played and studied together, and she became Mehera's best friend. Another relative, Ardeshir Khodadad Irani, operated an aerated water factory housed in a large aged bungalow on Sachapur Street. He sold soda, lemonade, raspberry, ginger, and pick-me-up drinks, as well as ice cream. The soda was manufactured in the central hall of the bungalow, a bustling place with scores of workers filling thousands of bottles. We could not go in that room because if a bottle broke, glass flew all over, said Mehera. We could just give a peep and run away. Adeshir's company also supplied oats for the British horses, and there was a mill in one part of the factory where the oats and other grains were pressed. Sweets were kept for the local children who brought wheat and millet to grind into flour. Mehera and her cousins often sat by the money box and put the sweets into the hands of these indigent boys and girls. As of 2019, Ardeshir and Sons was still producing flavored soda water in the same facility. Since their home at the Royal Hotel was too far from the convent school to go there and back for lunch, they ate at the soda factory, which was closer. Every day, a servant brought a hot lunch there, prepared at home. Mehera, with her cousin Piroja and her sister Piroja, would walk up the steps of the bungalow's veranda and continue into Adesh's office. And beyond that, to another room where they could eat. While they were eating, their uncle would be in his office, talking to several people. He would give this man lunch too. The food came from my grandmother's place, but uncle would also buy tongue cutlets or other meat dishes from a Mughal restaurant. They would sit and drink beer and eat. Since the girls ate separately, they could do as they pleased. They could, for instance, open a bottle of raspberry soda, taste it, and if they did not want it, leave the bottle half empty and get a different one. A copy of the latest Illustrated Weekly of India lay on the table, full of news of the British royalty. The girls relaxed, drinking sodas while they chatted and leafed through the magazine, looking at the pictures.
Okay, thank you. Deb, would you like to pick up? I don't know if she's still here.
Unmute. There you go.
Okay.
Mehera and Paroja never took a tonga to and from school, but always walked, solar topis perched securely on their heads. Once in a blue moon, if it was raining, we rode in my uncle's carriage. I didn't mind walking. It was good exercise. When the girls came home in the afternoon, Dalat had one rule. Before they went into the kitchen to get something to eat, they must wash their hands and face. In a saucer in the bathroom, she kept a slice of bread with a little milk on it, which they were expected to use to wash their face. This takes away the grease and doesn't dry the face like soap, Dalat had explained. But sometimes when Mehera came home from school, she was so hungry that she wanted to eat the bread. And I did eat a few small pieces, she said. After they moved to the Royal Hotel, Mehera and her sister seldom visited their paternal grandmother or other paternal relatives. Dalat wanted to be with her own family, and Mehera too preferred it that way. So there's an asterisk there, and the note is, the Royal Hotel was far away from Mehera's paternal grandparents' residence. Grandfather Hormusji, did I say that right?
No.
Had commissioned a large bungalow for his family. The old house on Main Street was torn down and a new one built on the same site, but the old man had died before it was completed. Okay, back to the regular text here. The Royal Hotel was a homey, comfortable place. The large house was near the railroad station, an uncongested area in those days. Nearby were a river and an open field in which Mehera caught butterflies. Many fruit trees grew in the compound: pomegranate, guava, citrufu, orange, tangerine, and a large mulberry tree that had a thick trunk and was heavy with fruit. The children loved to climb the tree and collect the fruit, divvying up the spoils amongst themselves and fighting over equal shares. Here's a note. Mehera remembered this tree and later tried to plant mulberries at Meherazad, but the bush never grew well, so she had it removed. Grandmother Shireen would bring out plates of tasty snacks in the afternoon around 4, and she had a special place in her heart for Mehera. Every day I would say that I wanted the biggest piece of watermelon. Grandmother loved me, so she would put up with it and give it to me. However, one day she said, "What is this? No one else is asking for the largest share. Why do you always want it? Don't be so greedy." Sometimes the children sat outside in the compound and watched her bathe her puppies. Grandmother always loved having a pet. Besides the puppies, she had a large talking parrot with grayish blue feathers and a red beak. Her son, Colonel Irani, had given it to her, and it was kept in a brass cage. The parrot would imitate grandfather's coughing fits and sneezes. And each morning, when grandmother called Mara's cousin, Peroda, it's time to get up, the parrot would say it first, which drove Mara crazy. At sunset, grandmother would put a white cloth over its cage so the parrot could not see anything and become afraid. Parrots are not very brave, Mara stated. If they become too scared, they do not survive. One day, grandmother forgot to pull down the cover, and the parrot saw a cat pass by. It began shivering and fell with a fever. Grandmother loved the parrot so much that she took it out on her lap, covered it with a flannel, and took it to the vet. But he was unable to save it and expired.
Oh, just seeing a cat was enough to do it.
It was for that parrot.
Okay, I can take over. Grandmother also kept chickens of many varieties, Rhode Island Reds and other exotic breeds, as well as Indian ones, ordinary Indian ones. They gave fresh eggs daily. Every 10 or 15 days, a chicken was slaughtered for dinner. One morning, Mara saw their servant Cassim catch a chicken by its leg and carry it off to one corner of the garden. She followed him and started asking questions such as, "Where are you taking that chicken? What are you going to do with it?" He told her to go play, and she quietly followed him and saw him sharpening a knife to kill the chicken. "No, don't!" she shrieked. "You can't kill it." Cassim called for the elders to take the child away. Mara stomped her foot and, sorry, a fly was in my soup. I stomped her foot. "I won't let him kill it." But the grown-ups said, "Now come along. You have to go to school," and led her away. That night they had completely forgotten the chicken that Cassim had caught. But by then Mara had that night no let's go back. That night they had the chicken that Cassim had caught, but by then Mara had completely forgotten the incident, and she ate to her heart's content, enjoying every bite. Years later, when she remembered the incident, she would still laugh about it. Uh, since on the front veranda of the Royal Hotel was meant, since the front veranda of the Royal Hotel was meant for only guests, the family ate on the back veranda, and dinner was served at 7 o'clock, with the children of the household seated around the table. Grandfather Sorab at the head. The adults ate later, after the children had finished. Grandmother Shireen loved to cook and stuff her grandchildren, and said, the sidebar says, Dalat had always cooked for her family while Jahangir was alive. They employed a cook, but Dalat supervised and made every meal, some dishes herself. When they came to stay at her parents' house, however, Dalat stopped cooking. It was good my mother knew how to cook, though, Mara said, as it came in useful. Yes, when she later supervised the cooking for the Prem Ashram and Hazrat Baba Jan High School at Mehrabad. As the children ate, she recounted stories about Persia, where she'd been born and raised, and the men working on one side of the field, the women on the other, and how they would call to and answer each other in songs as they worked. She also told them about Zoroaster. Often in the evening, a distant relatives of Dalit's named Meher came with a container of ice cream from his tea shop, and the children would flock around him as he dished it out. Both grandparents would be relaxing in stuffed chairs on the veranda. Grandmother Shireen, her feet propped up on a chair, would pray softly. Shireen was a devout soul who had a separate prayer room built for herself in her backyard by the mulberry tree, away from the main house. Here she would say her prayers regularly at certain times of day. For instance, at sunset each evening, she went around every room of the house, praying softly and waving a tray of burning sticks of incense, frankincense, and sandalwood. Zoroastrians believe that the fragrant smoke cleanses and purifies the air and eliminates any evil spirits lurking about. Picking 2 roses from the garden, she then went to her prayer room, empty except for the portrait of Zoroaster, and recited her prayers. Um, whose turn is it? Is it Eugene?
Every 15 days, also, Shireen would call Mehera for the Mushkil Asa'an, remover of difficulties, ceremony. If the day fell during the week, Mehera could not participate as she had to go to school. So Granny would wait and celebrate it on Saturday. Very early in the morning, Mehera took a bath, washed her hair, and then sat in the prayer room on a carpet where Granny would be seated also. Mehera would clean chana, chickpeas, as Granny retold the story of Mushkil, a perfect master who once rescued a young girl. Zoroastrians believe that if one observes the ceremony, one will also be divinely helped. Mehera knew the story by heart. Granny would repeat it slowly in Gujarati, and after a few lines, Mehera had to answer, Bele Bele, meaning yes, yes, as she shelled the chickpeas. Then Granny placed flowers and different sorts of delicacies, almonds, cashews, dried fruit, and sweets, in front of the photos on the altar. A mirror was also there, as one is supposed to worship one's own image as well. After an hour or so, they'd be finished and Mehera would be free to play with her cousins. On a more mundane level, grandmother Shireen was fond of snuff, which she took occasionally while she was relaxing after finishing her work. She would take out her snuff box, pat it, and inhale a pinch. The children loved to watch, but that was not all they did. Shireen had a tiny separate bedroom for herself, with at least one grandchild always sharing the room with her. When Shireen was busy in the kitchen, Mehera and her cousins loved to romp on her large bed that always smelled of snuff. One day they found their grandmother's snuff box under her pillow. Everyone took a little and gently sniffed it, each girl daring the other to take more until she sneezed. Taking snuff was considered an uncouth habit, but Dalat's sister, Franny Masi, Aunt Franny, also wanted to take it. She just didn't want anyone to know about it. So she concealed her snuff in a dainty silver bottle, and no one suspected. Mehera once inadvertently even tried her uncle's chewing tobacco. Seeing what she thought was a nice bar of chocolate lying on the table, she and her cousins bit off some. It tasted so bitter that the children spat it out and chuckled over their mistake. Mehera liked to explore the Royal Hotel. It had a mysterious attic upstairs, full of brass and copper cooking utensils, and a stable at the back for cows and buffaloes, behind which were 2 horse stables. I loved animals, said Mehera. We didn't have any riding horses at my grandmother's place, but there were cows and 1 water buffalo, which was kept next to a wall at the back by a platform. Since we didn't have any horses, every day for a while, I climbed on top of the buffalo by standing on the platform and then hopping on her. At least I got to ride a buffalo. She never bucked, but quietly went on chewing her fodder. I would sit on her back for a long time and finally jump down to play in the garden with my cousin.
Why don't you just finish this story?
Okie dokie. One day, however, Mehera came in the house, scratching her head. Grandmother called her near and said, "Let me look at your hair." She found several large flat lice that only buffaloes have. "Where have you been that you've got these things on your head?" Mehera confessed that she had been near the buffalo, but she did not tell Granny that she had been on it. Grandmother scolded her, saying, "Don't go near that buffalo again." Then she combed Mehera's hair every day with a fine-tooth comb to remove any remaining lice or their eggs. Fortunately, the lice had not been on Mehera's head long enough to multiply.
Oh, that's good. What page is this? This is
You know?
33. Oh, I have a
okay,
book.
we can pick up
33. Yeah.
we can pick up there next time. Okay, well, thank you all for coming, and I'll see you.